This is CNN.
A playground of raw sewage. Iraqi children fighting off disease and death almost a year after the Gulf War.
Women, children, the sick and elderly fleeing the front lines in Yugoslavia.
And in South Africa, a major tennis tournament deteriorates into a black-on-white brawl. Welcome to our viewers in the United States and around the world. I'm Frank Sesno.
I'm Catherine Crier at CNN Center in Atlanta. The bombs stopped falling on Iraq back in March, but the screaming and crying of children, innocent victims of the Gulf War, still echoes across the Iraqi countryside. Starvation, death, and disease are still widespread from Baghdad to Basra. Today, Iraq told the UN that sanctions are preventing the government from buying desperately needed food and medicine, and that people are dying needlessly. CNN's Paul Karen takes a look at the situation in Iraq.
Almost a year after the Allied forces bombed Iraq in the Gulf War, ordinary Iraqis are still fighting, again, for their own survival. Oxfam relief workers just returned to London with these pictures of Iraq. This isn't rainwater the children are walking in, it's raw sewage. Some streets in Basra are lakes of sewage. Oxfam says the sewage treatment plant was hit by flying shrapnel after an adjacent power station was hit as a strategic target by the Allied bombers. Oxfam officials say thousands of Iraqis, many already weakened by malnutrition, are at risk of contracting life-threatening diseases. Even pets aren't safe, as this dog slowly dies in the sludge.
We were in one pumping station in Basra, where the pumping station had been put out of action because it had been flooded to ceiling level by sewage.
The Iraqis, though, have tried homemade technology. This makeshift chlorinator takes the bacteria out of water, but it also puts Basra on the brink of catastrophe.
Here we have a canister that contains a ton of chlorine gas. There's enough gas in here to kill the entire population if this canister exploded.
Oxfam reports that Iraq's medical crisis continues. Doctors there tell the British charity that children are bearing the brunt of inadequate medical supplies, including a shortage of antibiotics.
We use just 3 or 4 antibiotics, which most of our microorganisms getting resistance to.
While most of the country's facilities are still in ruins, Oxfam workers say Baghdad, the capital, has been impressively rebuilt, giving Saddam Hussein a showpiece to disprove Iraq's Gulf War defeat.
Bridges have been rebuilt, the shops are fairly full and so on. But this masks the reality of life for millions of people in Iraq for whom it's not like that at all. And I think we've got to remember that, because for many it is a life amidst sewage and inadequate water and not enough drugs.
This week, a physician with the International Red Cross in Geneva flew to New York to meet members of the UN Security Council. He pleaded to them to take another look at increasing humanitarian aid for Iraq.
It should be made possible, and it should be put into act that more supply in food, in drugs, in spare parts could be brought into the country, that repairs of devices can be realized, that things turn back to normal functioning as they were before.
While shelters are being built for the winter months ahead, some children are able to escape the reality of their nightmare, even though there is much around them to remind them otherwise. Oxfam isn't asking that the UN impose sanctions against Iraq be lifted. The charity says humanitarian aid is urgently needed to avert the unending agony of the Iraqi people. Paul Karen, CNN, London.
Some of the Iraqi people appear to be enduring more hardship than others. A new wave of Kurdish refugees is flowing from renewed attacks by Iraqi troops in northern Iraq. Iraq's commerce minister denies that Baghdad has imposed a food blockade on the region and says the Kurds have enough food to last 3 months. But eyewitness accounts from the region tell a disturbing and violent story. Terry Lloyd reports.
Thousands of Kurdish families are now fleeing their homes, forced out by Iraqi threats that they will be shot if they do not pack up and go. It's a deliberate policy, say the Kurds, to destroy their homeland now that Saddam Hussein is no longer under the close scrutiny of the Western allies. Innocent families are being driven back into the mountains, and even the Kurdish guerrilla fighters, the Peshmerga, have withdrawn as Iraqi forces mass around key towns and cities. We were with the Peshmerga outside the oil town of Kirkuk when the Iraqis attacked. The guerrillas, armed mainly with rifles, were powerless to respond as the Iraqis fired mortars and machine guns at their positions. We are some miles from Kirkuk, and yet the Iraqi soldiers have already taken over this main road and are now shelling the village of Bina. In other cities still controlled by the Kurds, it's the Iraqi-imposed economic blockade which is strangling these people. Baghdad has cut the fuel pipelines, leaving many queuing for days outside petrol stations which may never be resupplied. For those still able to travel, their routes are littered with memories of earlier conflict, though problems such as this are fresh. The Iraqis have removed a strategic bridge, making this river crossing not only hazardous but slow, as the Peshmerga do their best to operate a primitive ferry service. This, according to Kurdish leaders, is all part of the oppression leading to all-out war.
I am sure that Iraqi regime is preparing for a new military operation against Kurdish people, and the appointment of Ali Hassan Majid as Minister of Defense, who is well known as a butcher of the Kurdish people, and who is the man who led the campaign of using chemical weapons against Kurdish people and who killed tens of thousands of Kurds. I think this is a new signal that Iraq is preparing for war against Kurdish people. We must expect it.
Families who have already fled their homes have started rebuilding their lives in overcrowded refugee camps in the worst of conditions. They improvise amongst the debris using mud and rock. Most say they have seen nothing of the building materials promised by the United Nations, and so they make do without. Corrugated sheeting to help protect families as part of the UN's winterization program has only just begun trickling across the border, and few Kurds enjoy such relative luxury. Another claim by the UN is that tents are a rare sight in Kurdistan. We saw thousands in makeshift refugee camps where food and water are rare and homeless families are begging for shelter. The few doctors battling to care for these people are being helped by the mild weather, but the snow will fall soon in the mountains and the death toll will most certainly rise. Deaths from cholera and diarrhea are now mercifully few and far between. The main problem in the refugee camps has been typhoid, but even that can be kept under control. However, in the next few weeks as winter sets in, doctors are worried that chest infections like bronchitis and pneumonia will kill thousands of people, and they are desperately short of antibiotics. Shadow Minister for Overseas Development, Aid and Clwyd returned to this camp high in the mountains to compare conditions.
I feel enraged, I must say, that 6 months on, the international community has left refugees like this in these conditions when the winter weeks are just a short time away, and they can't exist in the tents that they've got around here in temperatures which drop to minus 15 degrees centigrade.
The Kurds say they have been forgotten. As the sun goes down, they are bracing themselves for a bitter winter and an onslaught from Saddam Hussein's army. Terry Lloyd, ITN, in Iraqi Kurdistan.
There are reports today that U.S. and Mexican officials now believe the shooting deaths of 7 Mexican drug agents earlier this month weren't an accident. According to the Los Angeles Times, the officials believe a Mexican Army general ordered his troops to open fire on the agents. Authorities suspect the general was working for smugglers who were trying to move cocaine through the region. The November 7th shootings were originally thought to have been the result of pre-dawn confusion between 2 anti-drug squads.
Surprising testimony in the drug trafficking trial of Manuel Noriega. Convicted drug trafficker Carlos Leder links Noriega and the governments of Nicaragua and Cuba to cocaine smuggling. Leder says high-ranking Cuban officials ran a cocaine pipeline from Colombia through Nicaragua, then on to the U.S. He also says Noriega gave Colombia's drug cartel the names, photos, and addresses of all U.S. drug agents based in Panama.
Fighting halted play for about an hour today at South Africa's first major tennis tournament in 4 years. Angry spectators attacked a group of blacks who were protesting the event. The demonstrators were members of a group that wants to keep South Africa out of international sports until the country introduces a new constitution. Since reversing many apartheid laws, South Africa now has been invited to the 1992 Olympics and several other international sports events.
In the Soviet Union, 17 people, including several Republic officials, are reported killed after a helicopter crash. The Soviet news agency TASS says the chopper hit a mountain and exploded in thick fog in the Nagorno-Karabakh region, an area disputed by Armenia and Azerbaijan. TASS says among those killed, an Azerbaijani deputy prime minister and chief prosecutor, 2 generals, a KGB official, as well as representatives from the Russian parliament and the Soviet defense ministry.
And just ahead, efforts to evacuate the wounded from Vukovar, Yugoslavia, are thwarted. We'll tell you why, along with an update on the country's civil war and new efforts to end it.
International Hour is brought to you by Aflac, insuring over 35 million people worldwide.
That's life.
You guys around next week? Not me, I'm off to State College on Saturday. You're still going? That's great. What about your dad's surgery? Yeah, the bills and stuff. No problem. He had some extra insurance to help pick up the bills.
Aflac supplemental insurance helps close the gaps in your health insurance, like deductibles and co-payments. Aflac lets life go right on, and that's the peace of mind you want. Aflac, insuring over 35 million people worldwide. When it comes to mice, a lot of people are in the dark. They just don't know that for every mouse you see, there may be 15 or 20 that you don't see, or that mice eat in many different places. A very unhealthy situation. Unless you put Decon Mouseproof in the many places mice feed, like behind the refrigerator, in back of the cupboard, and behind the washer, so the mice will find it faster and end your problem faster. Decon Mouseproof gets mice right where they live.
You know what's smart? This Magnavox digital CD shelf system that's incredibly powerful, compact, but what's really smart is this Magnavox 8mm Easy Cam that weighs less than 2 pounds. But what's really brilliant is this 13-inch TV with a built-in VCR. But what's ingenious is this 31-inch with a smart window that lets you see other channels and swap the picture. You know what's smart? This Magnavox digital CD... Go away.
The ingenious products from Magnavox. They're smart, very smart. With 5 powerful cleaning agents, Fantastic not only out-cleans all others on greasy kitchen dirt, it's the perfect do-it-yourself cleaning kit for almost every surface in your kitchen and bath. 5 Cleaner Fantastic. More power, more places.
Its mission, the survival of the U.S. government. So secret, few people even know about it. A CNN special assignment examines the doomsday government at 6 and 10 Eastern tonight.
In Yugoslavia, after the fall of the Croatian city of Vukovar, the fighting and the suffering go on. Vukovar, virtually destroyed now, is being emptied of its residents. Meanwhile, more than 800 exhausted refugees arrived in Italy from the Croatian city of Dubrovnik. Vukovar and Dubrovnik stand as testaments unleashed by this civil war. We have 2 reports, beginning with Michael Nicholson in Vukovar.
The army has begun emptying the hospital here. Not the wounded. They're leaving that to others. But the able-bodied, the old, the women, the children, taking them in convoy to an assembly camp just outside of town. All the young men are picked out and taken away to be interrogated as prisoners of war. From this camp, families minus their sons and young husbands will be transported to safe towns of their choice further inside Croatia. International Red Cross teams are, as of today, acting as their guarantors of safe passage. But the teams have still to enter the hospital to help the sick and wounded. The army appears reluctant to let them. It is after the hundreds of Croatian fighters still hiding inside.
If fighters surrender, then the other side can consider them as prisoners. I mean, we are not a power to forbid that the army is taking prisoners among the wounded. What we want is that the wounded are protected, are cared for, and that we can register them and follow them up wherever they are, in jail or in another hospital. So that's our main goal.
The evacuation of armor and artillery has also begun. including the first of the tanks that did so much to reduce this town to rubble. Michael Nicholson, ITN, Vukovar.
Sailing into a harbour still burning after last week's shelling, the Italian hospital ship San Marco, on a mission to rescue the weakest and most vulnerable citizens of this besieged port. The Serbian-dominated federal forces had agreed to allow the evacuation of more than 1,000 women, children, the sick and the wounded. The operation was organised by officials from the United Nations children's charity UNICEF, part of a longer-term strategy to remove the helpless and the sick from the firing line while it is still possible. These people will be taken to Italy until it is safe for them to return to their homes and families. It was an emotional departure for those leaving and those left behind to face an uncertain future. The Federal Navy had lifted its blockade to allow in the hospital ship and a second vessel, a ferry which also carried humanitarian supplies for Dubrovnik. Food, medicine, and ominously, 200 coffins needed for those who died in most recent fighting and those expected to lose their lives when the ceasefire ends. The ferry stayed in Dubrovnik just long enough to be unloaded. When it sailed out again, Britain's consul Sarah Maroica and her husband were on board. They had remained in Dubrovnik during 6.5 weeks of shelling, during which they lost their home. The consul said she decided to go only after satisfying herself that all British citizens who wanted to leave had been safely evacuated. The city she leaves behind is so short of food, its residents are now reduced to scavenging among the gutted dockside warehouses for vegetables and other supplies that may still be edible. The arrival of foreign medical aid and the local extension of the ceasefire has given the people of Dubrovnik reason to hope that their city may not become a second Vukovar. Paul Davis, ITN, Dubrovnik.
Meanwhile, Dutch Foreign Minister Hans van der Broek tells the European Parliament today that the United Nations Security Council could decide this weekend to send a special peacekeeping force to Yugoslavia. Van der Broek says the EC will never accept the conquest of regions by force in Yugoslavia, including Dubrovnik and Vukovar. Catherine.
The prognosis is encouraging for journalist David Chater, who's recovering from a serious gunshot wound he received Friday in Vukovar. Chater, wounded in the stomach and back, has been moved out of the intensive care unit at a Belgrade hospital. The ITN reporter says it took him a minute to realize he'd been shot.
As I tipped over when the bullet hit, I didn't know what it was. I thought it could be a mortar or anything. I thought suddenly I'm not in touch with my legs. And I'm on the ground. And I was terrified that the spine had been hit or something serious had happened. But then I started feeling my toes as they dragged me away. I realized my legs were coming with me, so I was very pleased. Then the pain hit. But John was with me and they got me in very quickly. And quite frankly, I came around essentially in very good hands. So I'm feeling good. The prognosis is good.
Chater hopes to be able to leave the hospital in a few weeks. And still ahead, from freed U.S. hostage Thomas Sutherland, tales of torture at the hands of his kidnappers.
Belting me on the insoles of my foot until I just couldn't take it any longer, until I started to scream, and they said, "Quiet, quiet."
Presenting a way to make life a lot simpler. The Clapper. Turn on a lamp. Turn on the music. Turn off the TV. Use it anywhere you need a helping hand.
Simple.
Plug it in and insert the plug from just about anything.
Simple.
Clap on, clap off, clap on, clap off, the Clapper.
Give it a big hand.
The Clapper is available at Woolworth, Walgreens, Eckerd, and participating True Value. Makes a great gift.
There's a new pet.
Chia.
Chia Pet, the pottery that grows. It's fun and easy. Soak your chia, spread the seeds, keep it watered, and watch it grow. And now grow a whole collection of fun with Chia teddy bears, puppies, kittens, rams, bulls. There's even a Chia tree to keep your pets company. Chia Pets and Trees, the pottery that grows.
The Chia Pet and Chia Tree are available at Kmart, Walgreens, Eckerd, and Thrifty. Makes a great gift.
For those whose romance with the road is rekindled with each sunrise, beautiful mornings begin at 8. Super 8 Motels.
Good talk, great guests, and your phone calls. That's Larry King Live.
Did you put a jacket on? No.
It's a show where you'll meet interesting people.
I would watch you on daytime, Larry.
A show that's both informative and entertaining. Are you in awe of me? Yes. Okay, rest. I feel so good now. And always full of surprises. So join me for Larry King Live every weeknight on CNN.
Word from Iran of another pending hostage release, perhaps. Iran's news agency quotes sources as saying U.S. hostage Joseph Sicipio may be freed by week's end. The announcement follows a Hezbollah statement saying the hostage issue is no longer linked to the Arabs held by Israel. A White House spokesman calls the news encouraging. In Germany today, former hostage Thomas Sutherland welcomed the news and called on the Islamic Jihad to end the violence. CNN's Christiane Amanpour has details from Wiesbaden, Germany.
When Thomas Sutherland met the press, he came out swinging at his captors.
Keeping us is a heinous crime. Chaining men to the wall is something, as Terry Anderson has said many times, I couldn't do it. I simply could not do that to a fellow human being.
Surrounded by his wife, 2 daughters, and 2 brothers, Sutherland spoke of how he was captured in Beirut.
A little Simca came alongside and bumped us and then pulled in front of us and said, who is this? Who is this? Get out of the car. And I thought, my God, what's happening? And I thought it was a kind of a bad dream.
One that lasted 6.5 years, during which he was, by his own estimate, moved around 16 times, always chained to the wall, always blindfolded. His worst moment came when once he tried to lift the blindfold and was severely punished.
Belting me on the insoles of my foot until I just couldn't take it any longer, until I started to scream, and they said, quiet, quiet, shut up, and so on. And they screamed as loud as I did to shut up, etc. And then they resorted to the rest of the body, but that was the only time when they really mistreated me, and they prayed ahead of it, so they were already forgiven before they did it, so.
His sense of humor is still intact, his health is good, although doctors say years of restricted movement have made him a little unsteady on his feet, but to his family he looks just fine.
It's great. It's really wonderful. It is much better than I ever dared to hope it could be. Actually, just getting back is just absolutely superb. There aren't words for it. I mean, it's something just wonderful. A real
Jean
reward
Sutherland stayed in Beirut
and I
throughout
felt
her
real
husband's
work,
captivity.
and
She tried to get messages to him, but hardly any got through, except for one radio dedication.
Terry Waite, Terry Anderson were on each side of me, and I just broke down and cried, and I figured I didn't care if they laughed at me or not. I was moved and touched, and I loved you for it.
Now, reunited with his own family, Sutherland issued a plea for the release of all remaining hostages, including hundreds of Arabs held by Israel. There is new hope that the 3 Americans still in captivity will be free soon, now that the leader of the pro-Iranian Hezbollah group says that the fate of the Western hostages is no longer linked to that of the Arab prisoners held by Israel. Christiane Amanpour, CNN, Wiesbaden.
Terry Waite, the Briton who was released along with Sutherland, is keeping to himself today at an airbase outside London. CNN's Brent Sadler reports.
Terry Waite's homecoming was joyous and unspoiled. Since then, though, he's been in seclusion, unavailable to answer pressing questions about his methods of operating in Lebanon 5 years ago. Officials at Lynham, a British Air Force base outside London, refused to discuss any of Waite's government debriefing program. Information is sparse, its content non-controversial.
Terry Waite spent a relaxed evening in the flat at Lynham, enjoying the company of his family. Terry now wishes to take things gradually, and he hopes that people will understand if he does not himself make regular press statements or give any interviews.
Well-wishers have sent an avalanche of cards and flowers to the Special Hostage Unit. It's in this building that experts will unlock the images of Terry Waite's harrowing past and learn how his mental stamina was bolstered 3 years ago after receiving a postcard of 17th century writer John Bunyan. It was mailed to Beirut, care of Hezbollah, by this woman.
John Bunyan was in prison. He
suffered a lot, but yet out of his imprisonment came the book Pilgrim's Progress, which has been an inspiration to millions of people.
On arrival home yesterday, he held up that deed as a magnificent act of faith.
And I would say, never despise, ever despise those simple actions. Something in some way will get through to the people you are concerned about.
The serious business of encouraging Terry Waite to flash back to events before his kidnapping and afterwards will begin soon. Allegations that he was used as a screen by the US government will be investigated. Claims that he was carrying a secret transmitter examined by 2 Foreign Office officials. Terry Waite's recall is lucid. His attention to detail should be acute. But what, if anything, he has to say about reports of collusion with American covert operations will be confined to government files marked utmost secrecy. Brent Sadler, CNN, Lynham, England.
And when we come back, more of the day's news, including a fiery train crash in Kentucky and a deadly crash in Mexico. Stay with us.
One athlete, many challenges, a boundless energy that takes many forms. At Texaco, we share that energy in all that we do. The energy to create innovative products like Haviland Formula 3 motor oil. The energy to lead the way in exploration, conservation, alternate energy. The energy to go as far as we can, and then go even further.
If you've got what it takes, you can make it to the top.
We're about to prove a point. On the right, a pie wrapped in saran wrap. On the left, Reynolds Glad. Knowing a bear won't eat what he can't smell, which one holds an odor and freshness better? Saran wrap. Nothing protects food better.
Oh, Betty.
You're like cake, and you're like frosting too. 94% fat-free. They belong together naturally. Sweet talker, Betty Crocker.
The death toll is 32 in yesterday's train wreck in Mexico. The freight train jumped the tracks on a sharp curve in Tehuacan and plowed into traffic at a busy highway crossing, ramming cars, buses, and nearby homes. There are reports the crew abandoned the runaway train after its brakes failed. About 1,000 residents of Shepherdsville, Kentucky still can't go home a day after a freight train derailed on a bridge. 8 cars plunged into the Salt River. One of them is leaking a poisonous chemical. Another car carrying Army cluster bombs turned on its side, but officials say it poses no immediate danger. Another car carrying a flammable substance is dangling from the trestle.
One of Ireland's most famous country homes has gone up in smoke. Slane Castle was ravaged by fire yesterday in Dublin. The blaze apparently broke out in the basement kitchen. Up to 75% of the 18th century castle was damaged by flames or water saturation. In modern times, Slane Castle's grounds have played host to rock concerts by the Rolling Stones, Bruce Springsteen, and others. And ahead on CNN World Report, former communists in Bulgaria are angry. We'll tell you why. And gay rights activists stir up politics on the Isle of Man. Stay with us.
Can't believe he broke it at the company picnic.
Incredible. Our employee health plan covers him, right?
Not deductibles or co-payments.
So he has to lay out his own money.
Gaps in your health plan can be costly. Aflac can help. Aflac is a leader in supplemental insurance with 35 years of dependable service. Today, employees of over 80,000 companies count on Aflac for the peace of mind to get on with life.
Any ideas?
Yeah, Aflac.
Aflac, insuring over 35 million people worldwide.
In Switzerland, Ricola has been soothing sore throats and relieving coughs naturally for over 60 years. Ricola is a blend of 10 organically grown alpine herbs and natural flavors, providing pleasant-tasting natural relief. Ricola, the natural choice for soothing sore throats and relieving coughs naturally.
International Hour continues, followed by Early Prime after this local commercial break. Next on CNN.
This is no ordinary seedling. It's part of a $1.3 million tree planting program from Iowa Power. The program will help beautify Iowa and conserve heating and cooling energy. This is no ordinary piece of trash. It's recyclable trash. And last year, Iowa Power recycled tons of paper-related waste. When it comes to taking care of the world we live in, many of the most ordinary things we can do today won't seem so ordinary tomorrow.
Get ready for Ice Capades, presented by Legs Sheer Energy. World-class figure skating is coming to Vets Auditorium Wednesday, November 27th through Sunday, the 1st of December. Enter Hanna-Barbera's World of Fun and Excitement on ice with the Heritage Cablevision Ice Hot $2 off ticket offer. It's a hot deal for young people and seniors.
It's hot.
See Ice Capades, presented by Legs Sheer Energy, coming to Vets Auditorium. Don't miss this family favorite or your Ice Hot ticket offer from Heritage Cablevision.
This is CNN.
They are Haitian refugees fleeing the poverty and political chaos of their island by the thousands. The trip is literally death-defying. They sail to the U.S. aboard vessels barely seaworthy. The Bush administration wants to send them back, but a federal judge has halted repatriation, at least temporarily. That leaves thousands of refugees stranded aboard U.S. Coast Guard cutters. On Capitol Hill today, some House Democrats called on the president to rethink the policy of forced repatriation. Among them, Charles Rangel of New York, who charges the policy is racist. He says the Haitians are being forced home because they're black, and he posed a hypothetical to the Commissioner of the Immigration and Naturalization Service, Gene McNary. What he asked if these were boatloads of white Irish trying to flee a repressive regime.
Think for 1 minute that the United States of America will return these Irish people to Ireland?
Congressman, that's even an offensive question. We return anyone who is supposed to be returned under the laws of the United States of America. And we deport and repatriate every day to every country, but Cuba. And if you change the laws, or if the State Department establishes a new relationship so the Cubans will take Cubans back, we'll repatriate to Cuba. There is absolutely no discrimination. We have tried to be fair, consistent, and uniform under the provisions of that 1980 Refugee Act, and we're going to continue to do so.
There's little doubt the refugees are desperate. One says, quote, "I'd rather die at sea than die in Haiti."
As advertised, President Bush has authorized an additional $1.5 billion in aid to the Soviet Union. The chief components, technical assistance, and food credits. White House spokesman Marlon Fitzwater provided the details within the past hour.
The bulk of our package is in loan guarantees so that the Soviet Union can borrow money to purchase agricultural products. This assistance package will help stimulate the U.S. farm economy by providing an export channel for U.S. grains. It is aimed at alleviating food shortages and other dire humanitarian consequences in the Soviet Union this winter. In the United States, these guarantees will help our farm economy at a time when the general economy is very slow.
Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev met with a group of 7 officials in Moscow today, hoping to win even more aid. The officials are offering a plan to lend the Soviet Union $1 billion.
Thus far, a mixed day of trading on Wall Street. Let's get a financial update now from Jan Hopkins at the New York Stock Exchange. Jan?
Thanks, Catherine. Stocks are having trouble holding on to a rally today on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average has turned lower this afternoon, extending yesterday's 41-point sell-off. But in the last few minutes, it turned higher again. One bright spot in today's market is Merck. It is helping the Dow Industrials keep losses in check. A recent study found one of Merck's drugs successful in battling cholesterol problems. Shares of Merck, a Dow stock, now up 6.5 at 145 3/8. The Dow Jones Industrial Average overall is now up 4 3/4 points. Again, it just turned higher in the last few minutes. The Dow now at a level of 29.36 1/4. Volume today is heavy, 175 million shares changing hands. And declining issues are ahead of advancing issues by an 8-to-7 margin. The broader and the secondary markets are mostly lower. Only the NASDAQ index of over-the-counter stocks is moving higher. The stock of McDonnell Douglas is down 7/8 at 71 5/8. That's despite an announcement that the aircraft maker is forming a new company with Taiwan Aerospace. Under the agreement, Taiwanese investors will be able to own 40% of the new concern. Analysts say it's good news from McDonald's, but McDonald's competitors should not be too worried.
Certainly it's going to strengthen McDonnell Douglas, or potentially will strengthen McDonnell Douglas as a world-class competitor. But is it going to be such a dramatic improvement that Boeing is going to lose market share or that Airbus is going to get beaten back? I'm not really willing to bet on that.
At least one member of the Congress opposes the deal, saying it will cost U.S. jobs. Shares of Maxwell Communications fell another 25% today in London. Traders worried that demand for debt repayment by one of Maxwell's privately held companies could trigger a collapse of the entire empire. The stock of Maxwell Communication has lost roughly 70% of its value since Robert Maxwell died 2 weeks ago. Bond prices are turning higher now. Prices had fallen earlier on news that housing construction in October was stronger than expected. Now the Treasury's 30-year bond is up 5/32, and that yield stands at 7.90%. The U.S. dollar is mostly higher. It's up slightly against the German mark and the British pound, but it's unchanged against the Japanese currency. Join us tonight for Moneyline with Lou Dobbs. That's at 7 and 11:30 Eastern. And one final check of the Dow before we go. Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 4 points. I'm Jan Hopkins, reporting live from the New York Stock Exchange.
And just ahead on CNN World Report, a report from Germany on what Russian President Boris Yeltsin can expect when he arrives tomorrow in Bonn.
There's a big sense of pride in owning a company.
I think customers have noticed the change in the company and the change in us.
We've got this 24-hour hotline in case something happens while you're out on the road.
If you're in a hurry, we've added extra buses, get you in and out fast.
We want to make sure that our customers see that we can provide them with the type of service that they expect and deserve.
We love to make people happy. That's a part of our business. Keep you coming back.
We want to see them back at our counter again, many times. So why rent from anyone but an owner?
A kiss? No, I'm sorry. I don't think so.
Oh, no, please, no, baby, no.
Oh, not a good idea. Not now.
No, bad time.
Fight morning breath with Scope. Scope has 2 powerful ingredients that kill 90% of the bacteria that cause morning breath.
Your kiss is ready. Pucker up.
Right on the kisser.
Come on.
Kiss morning breath goodbye with Scope.
Give me that kiss. In nomine Patris.
Quebec, 1634. What happens when the ambitions of the old world come face to face with the mysticism and savagery of the new? From Bruce Beresford, director of Driving Miss Daisy and Tender Mercies, Black Robe, rated R. Now at select theaters, starts Friday at a theater near you.
By noon, her fever was climbing, and now she has a hacking cough and a raw, sore throat. Kate Porter has the flu. She needs Theraflu, soothing hot liquid relief to ease flu symptoms fast. Theraflu, your flu misery stops here.
Let's go now to Cheryl Atkinson for a look at what's coming up at the top of the hour on Early Prime. Cheryl?
Frank, for our U.S. viewers, from one combat zone to another, military women say they are under siege from sexual harassment. The poor and homeless aren't the only ones feeling the pinch of hard times, so are the charities trying to help them.
Wooden ships on the water.
And with their 3-part harmony, an attitude, and a conscience, they turned a lot of heads during the summer of '69, reliving the sounds of Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Join us at the top of the hour for Early Prime.
Welcome to CNN World Report, where we bring you news as reported by broadcasters around the globe from their perspective. Russian President Boris Yeltsin is heading to Germany tomorrow with the goal of improving life for the people back home. This will be Yeltsin's first trip abroad since the failed Soviet coup. He is expected to ask for economic aid, but as Deutsche Welle reports, the Germans have their own agenda for the meeting.
Yeltsin's present to his German hosts was announced days before his arrival in Bonn. Yeltsin supports expulsion of Erich Honecker from Moscow, this paper reports.
This resolution of the Russian government may create another conflict between the President of the Russian Republic and Mikhail Gorbachev. Gorbachev feels a moral obligation to grant asylum to the former head of Communist East Germany, Erich Honecker. Honecker was illegally flown from Berlin to Moscow last March to avoid being brought to trial in Germany.
For the foreseeable future, Yeltsin's intention to expel Honecker will remain not more than a political gesture to the German government. It's created a good climate for his political talks in Bonn this week. Boris Yeltsin is desperately in need for economic help for the Republic. Another winter of misery is knocking at the door. His preferred partner is Germany. But Germany is low on funds, due to the immense costs of unification and due to the money which has already been spent on the Soviet Union. Thus, Yeltsin can be sure to find an open mind for his problems in Bonn. Whether the pockets are as open is doubtful. Another problem to be discussed during Yeltsin's visit is that of the about 3 million ethnic Germans living in the Soviet Union, a good part of them in the Russian Republic. Russia is our home, but Germany is our fatherland, says this man. Like other ethnic Germans, he was deported under Stalin's rule from the one-time autonomous Volga Republic to the far end of the Soviet Union. Now, negotiations are underway to recreate an autonomous republic for the ethnic Germans in the Volga region. The German government supports the efforts to establish a Volga republic. We'll help to establish social and cultural as well as economic infrastructure, says Horst Waffenschmidt, representative of the German government for the ethnic Germans, during a recent visit to Russia. That's exactly what Yeltsin wants for the whole Russian Republic. His two-day visit to Bonn will show just how those wishes can be fulfilled. Heinz Pianka, Deutsche Welle for CNN World Report.
In formerly communist Bulgaria, the issue is land and whether it should be restored to those who owned it before communist rule. Here's a report from Bulgarian television.
One of the first moves of the new Bulgarian government was a bill on the restoration of seized state property. It was introduced by Prime Minister Filip Dimitrov, former opposition leader. The property is that acquired by the Communist Party and its satellite organizations in 46 years of rule and comprises real estate companies and assets. It was established by Finance Minister Ivan Kostov that the Bulgarian Communist Party had received some 2,200 million lev from the state budget over the 1945-1990 period, excluding interest and with data being incomplete. The Socialist Party responded with their own bill, declared readiness to return all save for 100 million lev, essential for its survival, and by calling a mass protest rally in Sofia. Party leader Alexander Lilov spoke of a clampdown on the party. The spokeswoman for the new parliamentary opposition, Nora Ananieva, assured supporters they would protect their interests. Ironically, the mass of those gathered in the city square never enjoyed the palatial residences, deluxe hotels, and other privileges while the party was in power. On a background of much bickering and street argument, the bill will be revised by a panel of the Parliamentary Legislative Commission before it is put to the vote in 2 weeks' time. Commission Chairman Alexander Gerov described it as just, lawful, and said it had been established beyond doubt the property in question had not been acquired through party membership fees. Mr. Gerov also said half of the property will not be recovered by the law due to concealment and the delay tactics of the Socialist Party when it held majority in Parliament over the past 2 years.
Some of the symbols of party power have gone. Others have been transformed into companies such as this Producracy Hotel, which also used to supply top-quality meals to their homes almost free. Whether the rest of the property follows suit together with the tension and hostility, we have yet to see in the weeks to come. Ilyana Sherkova, Bulgarian television for the CNN World Report.
And when CNN World Report returns, the political tug-of-war for Zaire's future as President Mobutu Sese Seko holds on to power.
CompuServe is the world's largest network of people with personal computers. CompuServe can turn your computer into a limitless source of information and resources that will simplify your work and enrich your life. It combines the power of your computer with the convenience of your telephone to bring you hundreds of online services, like a reference library and international news wires. It helps you decide on investments, make airline reservations, and shop the electronic mall. It connects you with other computer owners and offers games against opponents around the country. Just call 1-800-522-4477 for more information, or to join CompuServe. Just call this number today and get a membership kit for only $39.95 with usage charges as low as 10 cents a minute. CompuServe. You'll never stop finding new ways it can help you.
Dear Folgers, I was catering brunch for 950 people when I forgot the ground coffee. Then I was reminded of your restaurant commercials where people were secretly switched to Folgers Crystals. So I tried it.
Let's go.
I never received more compliments. You made a believer out of me and a lot of other people.
Folgers Crystals, proven with fresh brewed coffee drinkers.
Thanks, Folgers. Ed Merrigan.
There's a big sense of pride in owning a company.
I think customers have noticed the change in the company and the change in us.
We've got this 24-hour hotline in case something happens while you're out on the road.
If you're in a hurry, we've added extra buses, get you in and out fast.
We want to make sure that our customers see that we can provide them with the type of service that they expect and deserve.
We love to make people happy. That's a part of our business. Keep you coming back.
We want to see them back at our counter again, many times. So why rent from anyone but an owner?
Zaire's President Mobutu Sese Seko said today he will seek re-election, even as a conference convened that could end his authoritarian rule. Mr. Mobutu has been clinging to power since September, when soldiers rioted in the capital to protest low wages. Some citizens joined them. Many are unhappy with President Mobutu's autocratic rule and with the country's economic woes. Since the riots, Mr. Mobutu has promised democratic reforms, but the national conference to organize them has been slow in convening. Nigeria's president is the chairman of the Organization of African Unity. He recently sent a special envoy to encourage change in Zaire. Nigeria's NTV has this report.
Not much was revealed about how President Mobutu Sese Seko received the OAU chairman's message in his yacht on the River Congo, some 30 kilometers outside Kinshasa. President Babangida's concern is for the due democratic process to be allowed to take shape, and Zaireans are much for it in behind the presidential boat. Clearly, what is happening in Zaire will not stop until the wishes of the people are given a pride of place. Opposition leaders agree to this, but share President Babangida's call for caution and compromise.
I think I will follow the advice personally, and I am open to any talk or negotiation with President Mobutu, and open to attend the national conference.
All we ask is that President Mobutu leaves the people to allow the conference to hold naturally. President Mobutu does not intend to leave power, to concede power to the people.
Parce que mon gouvernement, my government, que j'appelle un gouvernement de combat,
which I call a government of fight, struggle,
entend justement terroriser,
intends
cette crise pour donner espoir à notre pays.
This crisis so that our country can be given hope.
Despite general agreement to go back to the conference table, most Zairean opposition groups, numbering about 230, expressed fears over their safety since the withdrawal of the French and Belgian troops.
Whatever else we can do to assist in ensuring successful democratization of Zaire, will do so.
Meanwhile, the country is restless. The evacuation of foreign nationals continue as the army demands pay rights, and the civil service union is on nationwide strike. Godfrey Odu, NTA News, Nigeria, for CNN World Report.
Voters on the Isle of Man go to the polls tomorrow in a general election dominated by a campaign to legalize homosexuality. The Isle of Man, a British possession in the Irish Sea, has its own parliament. But the British government is threatening to impose a change in the law if the Manx government does not fall in line with the mainland. More now from the BBC.
The Isle of Man stands 30 miles off the coast of South Cumbria. Homosexuality is still illegal here and carries a life sentence.
Gays demand equal rights.
Protesters chose this summer's National Day to try to embarrass the Manx government over its stance. Alan Shea has led a campaign for the law to be changed. His gesture of wearing a concentration camp uniform to present a petition offended some people.
It was all too anti-Germany, all killing gays, lining them all up, so that people knew who they were and what they were. I worked because one day our government could do exactly the same thing.
I would without question bring back the birch, and I would birch the homosexuals. And I would make them then do hard labour, and if they then committed the offence again, then I would say hard labour for life.
Alan Shea is standing as an independent in the election. He claims support is growing for homosexuality to be legalised. There have only been a few hostile reactions to his manifesto. But those opposed to change have also taken their campaign to the streets, fearing the Manx government may give in.
That is the deep concern of our hearts, that this vile act would never be legalised.
I would be ashamed to be Manx if this was made legal. I would.
The Manx government has been told to amend the Sexual Offences Bill. It's bound by the European Convention on Human Rights through its relationship with Britain. The island's Chief Minister, Miles Walker, supports legalising homosexuality, but he allowed his ministers a conscience vote rather than forcing them to vote collectively. They voted against the amendment. He says it's a decision he doesn't regret.
It is something that the ministers, as individuals, have expressed very strong views on. And I think it would be wrong for me as Chief Minister to bind them together, in the absence, don't forget, of the party system, to an issue such as that.
The bill goes back to Parliament next year. If it's rejected again, the British government will impose the law. Voters here fear any attack on their independence could set a dangerous precedent.
That report was from the BBC, and that's it for our CNN World Report segment. But still ahead, Britain's Prince Diana turns her attention to AIDS. But first, let's check Thursday's forecast highs for selected cities around the globe.
It feels as refreshing as it looks. The new shower massage from Teledyne Waterpick.
Campbell's heard your healthy request.
Low fat.
Less salt.
But lots of taste.
Here's our answer. New Campbell's Healthy Request ready-to-serve soups. All the great taste you want without some things you don't. New Campbell's Healthy Request. And healthy.
You grown-ups who think there's no time for a hot breakfast.
Just wait until you have children.
Consider Kellogg's Pop-Tarts. Hot and fast from the toaster. All that fruit filling. Tasty.
How about a hug?
Kellogg's Pop-Tarts. Real good, real fast.
We think it's time you tried something new.
New apple cinnamon Pop-Tarts.
It's apple.
Big apple flavor with just a touch of cinnamon.
You know what's good. Takes after me.
New apple cinnamon Pop-Tarts from Kellogg's.
There's a place in Louisiana in the central part of the state. They call it the Crossroads. Louisiana, we're really cooking. Give us a call.
We were really cooking.
On CNN Today, from medicine for high blood pressure to sleeping pills, why does it cost so much to stay healthy on Early Prime? And then on Showbiz Today, Bette Midler does it for the boys, all today on CNN.
This programming note, tomorrow on the International Hour, we'll take a look at a growing wave of neo-Nazism in Europe, and following one case in point in Germany. A royal visit in London today by Princess Diana to Europe's first AIDS hospice. Diana has taken a lead role in helping those suffering from AIDS and spent part of her visit talking with patients. Justin Jones has details.
Reaffirming her commitment to the care of AIDS sufferers, the Princess of Wales visited Europe's first AIDS hospice. Princess Diana met staff of the pioneering Mildmay Mission Hospice, which has cared for over 400 people affected by the virus. Mike Kelly, who has AIDS, presented her with a bouquet, and they chatted about his efforts to raise cash for improvements to the centre. The hospice helped him when he needed it most.
When I was a patient in here last year, I came in here in a bit of a state, physically and mentally, and they gave me some sort of direction in life. And ever since then, I've thought, get out and do it. There's no option, really, because I'm not prepared to sit at home and die.
Princess Diana keeps in close contact with developments at the hospice, and next year there are plans for the world's first mother and child AIDS unit.
We know that there are going to be larger numbers of women infected who also have sick children. And we believe it's very important that at a time when they're going to lose each other, that they're enabled to stay together when they're both sick.
Staff at the hospice say the princess is an inspiration. By touching and talking to patients, she reduces the prejudice, stigma and fear of AIDS. Justin Jones, ITN, East London.
Basketball star Magic Johnson has begun taking the drug AZT, the standard treatment for patients who test positive for HIV. A spokesman at the UCLA Medical Center says Johnson began therapy on Monday. He is reported in excellent health with no symptoms of AIDS. AZT is believed to delay the onset of the disease. And that's it for the International Hour. I'm Catherine Crier.
And in Washington, I'm Frank Sesno. Let's go now to Cheryl Atkinson for a look at what's ahead on Early Prime. Cheryl.
Frank, for our U.S. viewers, firefighting, always a dangerous profession, but it may be even more treacherous than anyone realized. A report on the newest firefighting menace. Jim Huber will talk with former Baltimore Colt football player Alex Hopkins about life after the NFL. And still harmonious after all these years. A look at the new Crosby, Stills and Nash box set due out in time for Christmas. Join Lou Waters and me for Early Prime coming up next here on CNN.
Coming up, Early Prime, followed by Showbiz Today after a word from your local cable system here on CNN.
Cinemax gives me a lot of variety.
I love all kinds of movies, and they've got them all.
Thoroughly entertaining.
No commercials. Countless movies on Cinemax.
It offers things that no one else seems to have.
You save a lot of money.
For people who like movies, Cinemax is America's best pay TV service.
24 hours, 7 days a week, movies.
Much better than waiting in line.
I come in anytime, it's there.
Cinemax, if you like movies.
Cinemax is worth it because it's the best, plain and simple.
The original MTV, the original Saturday Night Live. Find the hidden connection.
Sing a song.
Hi, Carlotta, this is MTV News.
I want a shotgun! I could do it all day.
Two swinging chicks.
So what's MTV have in common with SNL?
I'm gonna turn around and see if I can get a look at her.
Isn't it obvious? Watch weeknights at 7:30, the best of Saturday Night Live on MTV.
I'm hoping you can find a twist for me in the personals. You can find anything,
You're not a single white male. You're married.
even murder,
Do you tell him that you're a writer? No, he doesn't.
in the personals.
You don't know what kind of crazies are out there. He was cheating on you!
Stephanie Zimbalist, Jennifer O'Neill.
He loves me.
Personals, a USA Encore presentation.
I never saw anybody light up a bar like Jack.
You can say that again.
He had a million jokes.
2 million.
Oh, a riot.
Oh, yeah.
One of a kind.
No kidding.
I swear, if I thought he couldn't drive, I'd have said something. You know? I mean, how could you spoil his fun?
Right. Take the keys, call a cab, take a stand. Friends don't let friends drive drunk.